Hey there guys, we're going to be going back to Giorgione to do a rank 1 clear that doesn't use Tsukiko. Some of you said please, show a rank 1 that doesn't use the brand new unit, so we're going to show a rank 1 that doesn't use the brand new unit. That being said, it is very, very hard to perfect score this guy if you're not using Tsukiko. It can be done, we're going to do it, but just disclaimer, this requires really powerful gear, very strong units, etc. So here's the team we're going to use. You'll notice, quite a few powerful units on this party. Also, morale is going to be a little bit tricky, but thankfully, with this party, we're going to actually overcap the damage needed by a tremendous amount, like a billion or more probably. That being said, Phase 2 is pretty tricky to finish off using this clear. And for those of you that want like a more realistic budget run, I'm gonna have those eventually, but those are they are gonna use Tsukiko. That being said, my reruns using Tsukiko will not be as expensive as the first time I did this. But anyway, let's go in here and get a perfect rank 1 without using Tsukiko, but this is definitely a high-end clear because not using Tsukiko is pretty tricky. Anyway, so here is turn 1. Now you might be noticing we're not using like a dedicated tank on this party. No Runda, no Maeve, etc. So general mitigation is a little bit concerning. So in order to deal with that, for the first few turns, all the boss does is physical damage. So we're going to use Kresnik to imbue the boss with light on turn 1. That'll prevent all the damage for the first few turns. Sylvie can now do Petals, Vines, and Compassionate, mostly for the Charm immunity, but we need those morale fills as well. Kaito is using a fire weapon. We're going to use him to just deep destabilizing and deep. That's going to seal the boss and break him. Olive's going to use her LB to start unlocking her focus. Esther can just triple bolting to start filling her LB gauge. And Chizuru can do morale fill with, morale fill with Eastern, Strong Samurai, and Staunch Samurai Spirit. Okay, so like I said, turn 1 is just a bunch of physical damage, and he is imbued with light, which we're absorbing. Kaito is our provoker in this clear. He's wearing passive provoke. He's really going to be a support unit only in this clear. He's wearing lots of light resist. It's better to resist the damage instead of absorbing it, because absorbing triggers healing, and it counts as the boss's healing, and blah blah blah. It's better to resist it. Also, more importantly, the boss, we're not absorbing anymore, so now the boss will deal normal light damage, but notice Kaito is wearing a ton of light resist, so it's totally fine. Okay, now Kresnik is going to Arcane Stimulant to fill morale. Now for the next few turns, or in a few turns, there's going to be some water damage coming in. So we're going to use Kaito's base form Magnus to absorb water. We're going to use Tranquil Flow to seal the boss, and then we're going to use Torrential Downpour to put up a killer buff. We're going to be bursting on turn 4. Let's see. We're going to use now Sylvie after Kaito. We're going to use Sylvie to remove the water imbue and replace it with her Earth Magnus. So Marion's Blessing Earth, that'll be a 100% amp on turn 4. Now we're going to use I've Got Your Back on Olive to refill her LB, and then just Cheerful to refill more morale gauge. Now Olive can do her LB a second time, and now Focus is unlocked. We can use Esther to LB for the field, and Chizuru can Eastern, and then double Breezy. Breezy is going to give us a big wind resist buff and cure the Imperils this turn. Okay, more attacks on Kaito. He is, again, provoking, and the boss is still imbued. Here's an AoE Charm, but we're immune. Most of the attacks are missing. The ones that don't miss are being immune because Kaito is resisting. We're wearing light resist. Now this turn, the boss also gave us a damage over time, which is massively, massively powerful. So I'll show you how we deal with that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and just reload Kresnik for more morale fill. Let's have Olive just do some whatever stuff, and then we're going to do, as the second to last action, Giant Melon, and as the last action, Fire Cannon Fire to get her ready for next turn. Esther is just going to, refill LB gauge. Chizuru can just do Eastern and double Breezy again. That's going to cure Imperils and again reapply Wind Resist buff, because the boss removed our resistances last turn. That reapplies it. Sylvie on this turn is going to do, let's see, Demon Killer on Chizuru, because that's the big damage dealer here. So Poach Demon on Chizuru, and then we'll just do a double Cheerful to fill more morale. And actually, I've noticed a small problem in my turn chart. Let me fix that. There we go. Okay, Kaito is now going to go to the Shift form, and we're going to do Deadly Stream, Natural Flux, and Deep Submersion. Don't use Crashing Waves. And then Esther is going to do Magnus and Double Bolting. Now, turn 3 is very dangerous. We have the damage over time, and the boss is going to do some elemental attacks. There's going to be 4 things that happen this turn. First of all, the damage over time. Everyone's going to Guts. Now, we have no general mitigation at all at this point, so any damage we take is going to be astronomically high. So we have to either Guts or immune everything. We're all going to Guts the damage over time and go to 1 HP. That's fine. Then the boss is going to do a wind attack. Thanks to the gear and Chizuru's buffs, everyone has 100 or better buffed wind resist at the current time. So we're going to immune the wind attack. Then the water attack is going to be absorbed by Kaito. Notice we're not using water resist, but Kaito is going to let us absorb that attack from the skill he used last turn. And then the physical attack is going to be, you see the boss is still imbued with light element, so the physical damage will be resisted by our provoking Kaito. So no damage taken at all on turn 4 except the Guts damage over time. There's the Guts. Everyone Gutses it. That's okay. So here come the wind attack, we immune it, the water attack, we absorb it, and then the single target attacks, Kaito resists them. So that's how we get through the entire phase 1 without having to bother with any general mitigation at all, because no one of this party can buff general mitigation except Sylvie once in the fight, which we're going to use later. Okay, now it's the burst turn. So first of all, notice how we still have the damage over time. Well, you know, I can show you, I guess. We still have the damage over time. So when we end our turn, everyone's going to basically die again or Guts. Now, we are using double Guts on Kresnik and Kaito. They will not die. The rest of the party is going to die after we finish the turn. So in order to make them not perma-die, Kresnik will AoE re-raise with Mastery. We're also going to Remedy to cure those breaks you notice that we have. We don't want breaks in the burst turn. So we're going to Mastery, Remedy, and then it doesn't really matter what else. Antioxidant Potion, it really doesn't matter. We're going to now use Sylvie to Shifted LB for the modifier boost for this nice big burst turn. And the rest of the party is going to burst. So Chizuru is going to shift and do her Shifted LB. Esther, LB, base form. Olive, SLB, and Kaito, Shifted LB. Now, all of these are Extreme Nova, so that's going to be a 119-point chain for the chain count. Now, we should overcap by a very, very smooth amount, like a billion or better. Unless we have like a horrible variance roll, then it might be less. Anyway, so we're going to send Chizuru like a split moment early because she's a tag chainer and she's a backloaded chainer. Then we're going to send the rest of the guys. So Chizuru, just a moment, then everyone else. That way everyone else gets the max modifier chain. And we did 3.6. We overcapped by almost 1.2 billion damage. There you go. So the damage over time killed everyone. They all came back. Okay, now we're in phase 2. The damage over time at this point has worn off. That being said, it is turn 5. Turn 5, the boss is going to reapply the damage over time. Also, because we pushed the threshold, the boss is going to get a magic and attack buff for the next 2 turns. So, and also, I think I mentioned it already, the boss is going to reapply the damage over time on this turn. Now, in order to deal with all of this, we're going to do a few things. First of all, Kaito is going to go to the base form, and we are going to, again, reapply water absorption, because there's going to be some water damage coming in, and we don't want to deal with that. So water absorption, then swelling current for the mitigation versus demons and fairies, so racial mitigation. And then we're going to use cascading just to seal the boss, because remember he's wearing an elemental weapon. There we go. Esther is going to go to the shift form, and because the boss is no longer imbued with light element, Kaito, unfortunately, is no longer going to be able to safely tank this guy. He is still provoking, though, but Esther is now going to cover with electromagnetic shield. Then we're going to do Energizing Bunny and Quantum Storm on Kresnik. So now Esther is covering in the shift form, which has very high defense. Sylvie is going to give us general mitigation with burgeoning defense. We're also going to Compassionate for the charm resist. And we're going to do Elemental Vines. We don't need to do physical mitigation yet with this turn. Chizuru is now going to do Eastern Winds, Breezy Barrier, and Focused Mind. Focused Mind is just a big barrier. I think we already did a barrier with Sylvie. We did. That was kind of irrelevant. Whatever. Kresnik will go ahead and Potion, Antioxidant, and Remedy to heal the party up. Now, remember how I mentioned that the boss is going to do a damage over time this turn? Unfortunately, we kind of need Olive to be alive for the next few turns, and she would probably die if we gave her the damage over time, because she's a little bit squishy, and she doesn't have a safe form to hide in like the rest of the guys. So in order to... We can't hide Olive in like a safe Brave Shift form, but we can hide her in the sky. Get out of here, Olive. Jump away from the damage over time. Okay, so here's the damage over time, the green with envy. It does not get applied to Olive. There's some AoE attacks, not too bad. The whole party is in a non-DPS form so that they have lots and lots of bulk. They all got the damage over time. Olive was in the sky, she didn't get it. Now Olive's going to drop back and rejoin the fight without the damage over time. There's Olive. Alright, she dropped for 666 damage. Nice. Okay, next up is going to be, we're going to use Sylvie to shift here. And we're going to kill the boss on turn 8. So we're going to have Sylvie put up that Earth Magnus again. So Marianne's Blessing Earth. And then we're going to do Clever Paladin Strike twice to refill her LB gauge, as well as Chizuru's and all that. Esther on this turn is going to do Storm Guardian for the 90% mitigation. She's going to need that in a moment. And we're going to double Shatterbolt just to give more morale fill. It fills morale. Chizuru is going to do Breezy Barrier for the Wind Resist. The boss removes your resist buffs pretty often. You got to keep reapplying them. So we're going to do a Wind Resist with that. Then we're going to do an 85% physical mitt and an 85% magic mitt, because the next two turns are going to be kind of painful. Kaito is going to go to the shift form this turn. Now we're going to do Crashing, which is a dispel, a recurring dispel. So Crashing Waves, Deep Submersion, and we're going to do Downpour to give a killer buff. And then Kresnik can just do Antioxidant and Remedy. That's going to remove the breaks we have on the party. And we can re-raise Olive for like the absolute safety, but I don't think she's going to die. She's definitely not going to die in that case. So the whole party has the damage over time, but now we have mitigation, and they're pretty bulky. As you can see, they're relatively bulky. Olive does not have the damage over time because she jumped away from it. Okay, so here's some attacks. Esther is tanking this like a super champ. Not a problem at all. 90% mitigation and 85% physical mitigation from Chizuru. Super easy. And we're still provoking with Kaito. Okay, so turn 7 is going to be a little bit of a dangerous turn. This is the turn the boss does AoE Water, AoE Wind, double AoE non-elemental damage. So a lot of attacks this turn. And we don't have Absorption any longer. That being said, we do have 85% general and 85% magical mitigation from Chizuru and Sylvie, so we should be totally fine here. Let's have Sylvie go back to the base form and reapply some resistance buffs, because again, the boss keeps removing those resistance buffs, and we're going to do Resolve, so the players that take the damage over time will regenerate back up. Olive is going to get ready for bursting next turn. This is why we didn't want Olive to die. So now she has her Magnus still unlocked. So let's go ahead and just do some whatever skills. Then Melon, and then Giant Cannon Fire. Okay. We're going to go to the base form with Esther. Then we're going to do Calm and Double Bolting. Chizuru is going to Typhus' Spirit to get ready for bursting next turn. Kaito is going to do, let's see, Deep. No, we're going to do Natural, Deadly, and then Deep. And Kresnik is going to just do, doesn't really matter. So Potion, Remedy, and Antioxidant is fine. So go ahead and chain up your Kaito and Esther for a little bit of bonus damage. It's not going to be much, really, because the boss is mitigating this turn, but a little bit of bonus damage. So let's chain up your Esther and Kaito so they make it a little bit easier to kill the boss next turn. As you see, the boss is mitigating this turn, basically no damage, whatever. The real damage comes next turn. So there's the damage over time. There, the Kappa's shell has broke. Now we can deal damage. Here's the AoE attacks. Because Olive never got the damage over time, she's fine here. Totally fine. Now we can kill the boss. That being said, this is the last turn of our mitigation from Sylvie. Now we have no general mitigation whatsoever from this turn forward. That being said, we're going to kill the boss right here. There's the 100% amplify. Good to go. So you can see on the boss, he's got 90 breaks, negative 155 resistance. We've got big old killers up there. You can see killer at the top of the screen. So we are good to go. So let's SLB Olive. Let's LB Esther. Let's shift and LB Chizuru. We'll go ahead and just LB Kaito again. Sylvie's got to go to the shift form and use her shifted LB. And Kresnik can just jump in this chain because why not? We'll just chain lightning to build it quicker. And okay, so we're going to chain all this up. Again, we're going to send Chizuru a moment early, and then we're going to send everyone else. So Chizuru right there, and then everyone else. And that should be the end of the boss. That being said, the boss does have some mitigation. There's Chizuru's final hit, boom. The boss does have higher mitigation in Phase 2. It is harder to kill him. So we did 2.5 for the final burst. You need to do about 2.2-ish or 2.3 to finish off the boss in Phase 2. So it's a little tricky. That's why I said you need really strong damage dealers to finish off the boss. Now, if you didn't kill the boss off, assuming the boss survived, you can still survive and kill him on turn 9. I was almost kind of hoping we didn't kill the boss right there, and here's the damage breakdown. I was almost kind of hoping a little bit we didn't kill the boss, just so I could show you the recovery turn. But I'll explain what happens, because it does happen in a few test runs. If that happens, the boss would do some AoE attacks. It'll kill your entire back row. So Esther, Chizuru, and Olive will all die. Then most of the attacks will go to Kaito, who are provoking. They will miss. 1 or 2 will hit Kaito. They shouldn't kill him. He'll guts one of the super stabs, but the rest should miss him. Kaito will still be alive at the end of the turn. So will Sylvie. So will Kresnik. Most of the time, Sylvie will counterattack and bring everyone back, and then you just kill the boss. Will be at like 2% health. Just finish him off. Re-imbue with Sylvie's gravel egg and kill him off. And just chain the guys. They kill. You win. There it is. Or just kill him like I did on turn 8. So here's the damage breakdown. So I'll show you the gear in a moment. But Kaito was geared purely as a support tank. His damage is irrelevant. Sylvie support, Kresnik support. And then the damage dealers, Chizuru, Esther, and Olive. So this is actually a legitimate breakdown because we didn't ever deal damage except for the 2 burst turns. And on both of those burst turns, everyone got a full-powered burst in. So this is a very legitimate breakup. And the reason we did less damage in Phase 2, like I mentioned, in Phase 1, the boss on turn 4 has only 30% mitigation. In Phase 2, he's got 50% mitigation. That's why we did 3.5 in Phase 1 and 2.5 in Phase 2. Anyway, here's the breakdown. Let me show you the gear and talk about some potential swaps and all. And I am already finished farming. Thank you. Okay, so there's the rank 1 with no Tsukiko. You know, it's a pretty smooth clear. It's just intensive on the gear. Okay, so here's the party. As far as espers go, no real specific espers, just, gear them around as needed for resistances and killers. So, Kresnik is using... now, the whole party wants to have some water and wind resist and bulk. So, Kresnik in the base form wants very, very high bulk because we don't want him to ever die, because we need his autocast to stay active. Therefore, he's got a source of guts in the base form and a different source of guts in the shift form. So shift form is using Chocobo accessory, base form is using Oerber's boon. Do not use the same source on both forms because he's going to guts on turn 3 in the shift form, and we need him to guts again on turn 4 in the base form. It's very important. Okay, other than that, just bulk. Base form is using some water and wind resist. You need a minimum of 50 wind resist. You actually don't need any water resist technically, but the more you have, the better. But most of the dangerous water turns, we absorb them. There's only like 1 or 2 turns in the whole fight where we actually take water damage. So that's not important, but you need at least 50 wind resist. He's got kind of more than we need, but that's okay too. So here's the gear we used, and you saw what he did. There it is. Again, he needs to survive, so I gave him the best bulk card of all. So there we go. And then shift form. Shift form, he starts in the shift form, and he's using the Celestite Rod and the Treasured Ring for some, morale at the start of the battle. Make sure you put them in the form that he starts in. And the shift form doesn't need much bulk, really no bulk at all, but it does need at least 50 wind resist. Sylvie is using Blizzard Orb. You could go more Blizzard Orbs, but honestly, we don't really rely on her counters ever. The only reason for that counter is just in case you don't kill on turn 8. You need her to counter on turn 8 to bring the DPS units back so we can finish on turn 9. But she is dual wielding with her own card for the morale gain. And she does have 50 or better wind resist and a little bit of water resist and some bulk. So there's the gear. Also some LB fill. Give her some LB fill so that she gets her LB back again by turn 8 for another burst. Shift form geared literally identical. Kaito is a little bit important here. He is wearing his Trust Mastery, which gives him permanent, always active water absorption. So he can ignore water resist, although he just happened to get a lot. He can be at negative water resist, it's totally fine. But you do want him to have 200 or better unbuffed light resist. So 200 or better unbuffed light resist, and 220. Actually, no. No, all he needs is 50. Yeah, that's an old strategy. 50 or better. 50 or better. No, because turn 2. Okay, no. Give him 200 wind, 200 light, and ignore water. There you go. And give him a source of guts and passive provoke and full evasion. So there we go. So a little bit trickier on the build. I'll go ahead and post a screenshot of the team's gear in the comments as well. Shift form, identical shift form. There we go. And give as much bulk as you can. And he's dual wielding on Sylvie's card as well for more morale gain. That being said, if you don't max out your morale by turn 4, it's okay. You'll just deal less damage on turn 4 for the burst. But we did 1 billion more than you need. And by the time you get to the hard burst in phase 2, by that point, your morale will be maxed anyway. Anyway, as far as damage goes, irrelevant. Also, he is using a fire weapon. So either fire, earth, or light weapon, because we don't have imbues on turn 6. And he needs to seal the boss on turn 6 with a elemental weapon. So, fire weapon. And there's the card. Chizuru, in the base form, again, is using 50 or better wind resist, some bulk, and then Tyvus' Spirit. Other than that, a little bit of LB fill. And then, and she's dual wielding on a Wilkes card. And again, this is overboard on morale. You don't need this much morale because we did 3.5 billion on the burst. If we had less morale, we would have done like 3.0 or 2.8 or something. It still would have been fine. Anyway, shift form has no guts at all. The only time we shift is on turns 4, and then she dies. We don't care. We actually want her to die on turn 4. So do not give her guts in the shift form, because we literally want her to die on turn 4 to put her back in the base form. That way her shift is ready again for turn 8. Anyway, so just LB damage versus demons and fairies, and there it is. And we've got maxed LB, maxed 275 demon, and 300 fairy killer. And there's the build. Esther, in the base form, is using a source of guts. Needs a source of guts in the base form. Only one source. Don't give her 2 sources in the base form. Just 1 source of guts. Other than that, we needed some wind resist. So 50 or better wind resist, and a little bit of water resist does help. And then there we go. There's her build, and there's her card. In the shift form, she is tanking for phase 2. So some high water and wind resist in phase 2, a source of Blizzard Orb, that way it refills her LB so she can do her LB stuff, And there we go. Make sure she's wearing her Trust Mastery. And there it is. There's the build. And she tanks in phase 2 and does damage in phase 1. And then Beach Blaster Olive is a little tricky to do. Now, she needs 50 or better wind resist, a little bit of water resist. Honestly, she doesn't need much bulk because we use Wind Drake Horn to jump away from the damage over time in phase 2, and it completely ignored that by jumping away. You can buy this from a Moogle shop in the main storyline for Star Quartz. Other than that, LB damage versus Beast and not Beast, Demons and Fairies. And even though she's not wearing tons of killer, she was the highest damage dealer, as you saw. So she is a very strong damage dealer. She's just a literal glass cannon. She is very, very squishy and very tricky to use on a fight like this. But as you just saw, it can be done. Maxed LB damage, 275 Demon, and only 100 Fairy Killer, and she still did the most damage. So, enjoy. And that was the team. Okay. I'll post a turn chart in the comments. I'll post a screenshot of the gear in the comments. And I will try to go back and do some cheaper runs using Tsukiko. Tsukiko is definitely going to be very important for any sort of rank 1 budget clear. And as far as a just clear it clear, I'll be doing the new player stuff later. For now, I'm kind of busy on the main player stuff. But once I have more time, I'll go and do some new player stuff in Clash of Wills as well. Okay, hope it helps. See you in a bit.